Hey everyone, Chris from Know Your Why Recovery here, and welcome to another Know Your Term. Today we're going to be discussing substance use disorders. When I say substance use disorders, what I'm referring to is a specific diagnosis that a doctor or other licensed clinician made using the DSM-5. In the DSM-5, substance use disorders occur on a continuum of severity, which is in contrast to previous versions of the DSM, where you might have heard terms like substance abuse or substance dependence. While many people still use these terms these days, they're not really supposed to be used for diagnosis. What the DSM-5 does is lay out a set number of criteria. These criteria essentially are symptoms. And if the person meets a certain amount of symptoms within a 12-month period, then they're diagnosed with having a substance use disorder. I'm going to go through the criteria in a minute, but essentially if somebody has 2 or 3 of the criteria in a 12-month period, they have a mild substance use disorder. If they have 4 or 5 of the criteria, they have a moderate substance use disorder, and if they have 6 or more of the criteria, they have a severe substance use disorder. Now, the substance use disorders aren't diagnosed as just substance use disorder. They're diagnosed using the class or the specific substance that the person's using. So you'll hear terms such as alcohol use disorder, PCP use disorder, inhalant use disorder, cannabis use disorder, other hallucinogen use disorder, opioid use disorder, sedative or hypnotic use disorder, tobacco use disorder, cocaine use disorder, amphetamine type use disorder. You get the idea. So now the criteria are a bit wordy, and maybe in another Know Your Why, we'll explore what the criteria mean in real life examples or terms. But in the meantime, I'm just going to give you kind of the clinical rundown of what each of the criteria are. Now remember, in order to be classified with a substance use disorder, a person needs to meet at least 2 of these within a 12-month period. The substance is often taken in larger amounts or over a longer period than intended. There's a persistent desire or unsuccessful efforts to cut down or control use of the substance. A great deal of time is spent in activities necessary to obtain the substance, use the substance, or recover from its effects. There's craving or a strong desire or urge to use the substance. Recurrent substance use resulting in a failure to fulfill major role obligations at work, school, or home. Continued substance use despite having persistent or recurrent social or interpersonal problems caused or exacerbated by the effects of the substance. Important social, occupational, or recreational activities are given up or reduced because of use of the substance. Recurrent use in situations in which it is physically hazardous. The substance use is continued despite knowledge of having a persistent or recurrent physical or psychological problem that's likely to have been caused or exacerbated by use of the substance. Tolerance, as defined by either of the following: a need for markedly increased amounts of the substance to achieve intoxication or desired effect, and or a markedly diminished effect with continued use of the same amount of the substance. And then finally, withdrawal, as manifested by either of the following: the characteristic withdrawal syndrome for the substance, and or the substance is taken to relieve or avoid withdrawal symptoms. Now, at the end of a diagnosis, there could also be a specifier. The specifiers indicate other information that may be useful, such as in early remission. Somebody in early remission has no symptoms except for maybe cravings for 3 to 12 months. Somebody in sustained remission has no symptoms except for cravings for more than 12 months. If the specifier in a controlled environment is used, it's indicating that the person is in an environment where access to that substance is limited or prevented. And then finally, on-maintenance therapy refers to when somebody is prescribed an agonist medication and none of the criteria are met except for tolerance or withdrawal, and that's related to the medication that they're receiving. I know this has been a mouthful, and like I said, we may explore it in more relatable terms in a later Know Your Term. However, we thank you for joining us today. I remind you, if you like Know Your Why Recovery, check us out on www.knowyourwhyrecovery.com. You can visit our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages. And every like, comment, or share helps spread a positive message and gets information out there to help us defeat the stigma that's related to mental health and addiction. If you really want to support Know Your Why, Going to the website or any of those social media pages, you'll find a link to our GoFundMe where you can provide direct donation, which will help keep the website going. Thank you for visiting us and coming along with this journey. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.